$78 billion. That's what eBay was worth in 2004, more than Amazon, more than any e-commerce company on the planet. 135 million users buying and selling between strangers in 30 countries, 24 hours a day. The first website where a stranger sent money to another stranger. And it worked. Today, Amazon is worth $2 trillion. eBay dropped to $17 billion, less than a quarter of what it was. It lost its users, lost PayPal, threw away $2.6 billion on an absurd acquisition, and the press buried it as the auction site your dad used to use. But here's what nobody tells you. eBay didn't die. In 2024, it made $10 billion in revenue, with a 21% operating margin. Without making any noise, without making headlines, it's more profitable than in its best days. How is it possible that the company that invented buying between strangers on the internet, that was worth more than Amazon, fell until everyone gave it up for dead, and today is more profitable than ever? What you're about to see is not the story of a company that failed. It's something much more useful, traders. The difference between being big and being essential. Because eBay made every possible mistake. And the system that saved it in the end is exactly the opposite of the one that made it rich. September 4th, 1995, Labor Day in the United States. A 28-year-old French-Iranian programmer named Pierre Omidyar puts up a web page from his apartment in San Jose, California. He calls it Auction Web, a name as boring as the design, which is basically black text on a gray background. The idea is simple, and in 1995 sounds insane. That anyone can sell anything to anyone else over the internet. No store, no middleman, without knowing each other at all. The first item sold is a broken laser pointer for $14.83. Omidyar calls the buyer, convinced there's been a mistake, and the guy tells him, "I'm a collector of broken laser pointers." In that moment, Omidyar understands something that's going to change commerce forever. You don't need to know what people want to buy. You just need to give them a place where they can find each other. Years later, eBay's communications director would invent a much prettier story. That Omidyar created the site so his girlfriend could sell Pez candy dispensers. A lie. But the legend was so perfect that it was repeated in every article for a decade. But there's a huge problem. In 1995, people don't even trust giving their credit card number over the phone. Sending money to a stranger on the other side of the country through a website that looks like it was made in an afternoon? Impossible. And this is where Omidyar does something brilliant. He invents something you use today without thinking every time you order an Uber or book an Airbnb. The reputation system. The little stars. Every buyer rates the seller. Every seller rates the buyer. Your history is your identity. If you scam someone, your reputation is destroyed forever. Today, it sounds obvious. In 1995, it was like inventing trust. It works. In 2 years, Auction Web has hundreds of thousands of users, and Omidyar charges a small commission on every sale. The money comes in so fast that his bank calls him thinking it's a mistake. So Omidyar decides to give it a real name. He wants to register Echo Bay, the name of his consulting firm, which he chose simply because it sounded cool. But the domain echobay.com is already taken by a gold mining company. He shortens it to eBay.com, and without meaning to, creates one of the most recognizable brands on the internet.
See what Omidyar did? He didn't sell anything. He didn't make anything. He created the S-Wisdom that let millions of people sell to each other and kept a percentage of every transaction. It's the most powerful model there is, charging a toll on a bridge that connects millions of people. But that model has a problem Omidyar didn't see coming, and that nearly destroyed eBay 2 decades later.
In March 1998, eBay has 30 employees and makes $4 million a year. Someone arrives who's going to turn that garage experiment into a global empire. Her name is Meg Whitman, a Hasbro executive, a consumer brand specialist who knows nothing about the internet and who, when offered the job, doesn't even have a personal email. Whitman accepts, and what she does over the next decade is one of the most brutal growth stories in business history. 6 months after arriving, she takes eBay public. The stock opens at $6 and closes the first day at $18, tripling in hours. It's September 1998, the peak of the dot-com bubble, and Wall Street goes crazy for eBay. And for good reason. The company grows so fast that revenue doubles every year. Whitman doesn't stop. She expands eBay to 30 countries, launches categories nobody imagined: cars, electronics, fashion, and takes the headcount from 30 to 15,000 people. Her philosophy is elegant in its simplicity. Don't touch anything. eBay has no warehouse, no inventory, no trucks. It just connects buyers with sellers and charges a commission. The market regulates itself. Bad sellers disappear because nobody buys from them. Good ones rise because the little stars speak for them. By 2004, eBay is worth $78 billion, more than Amazon. Whitman is on the cover of Fortune, Forbes, and Business Week in the same year. And this is where the story gets dangerous, because success is the most powerful anesthetic there is. While Meg Whitman perfects the art of doing nothing, a bald guy in Seattle is doing exactly the opposite. Jeff Bezos has an obsession that keeps Amazon's investors up at night, spending every last cent of profit on building infrastructure. Massive warehouses, automated distribution centers, fleets of trucks, logistics systems that seem like science fiction. In 2005, Bezos launches Amazon Prime, 2-day shipping for an annual subscription, while eBay's sellers still depend on going to the post office whenever they feel like it. The difference in philosophy couldn't be more brutal. While eBay trusts the market to regulate itself, if a seller is bad, the little stars punish them, and that's that. Amazon wants to control every step of the process, from the moment you click to the moment the package arrives at your door. In 2005, eBay's bet seems the smarter of the two. But in just 5 years, it's going to prove suicidal. And eBay, instead of reacting, spends $2.6 billion buying Skype because, and I'm not making this up, someone decided that buyers and sellers would want to video call each other before closing a deal. Obviously, nobody in the history of e-commerce has ever wanted to video call a stranger to buy a second-hand lamp. So 4 years later, eBay dumps Skype for $1.9 billion, losing $700 million in cash, and, worse still, the most valuable time in its history. Because while eBay was playing with video calls, Amazon was building the system that was going to rewrite the rules of e-commerce forever. In 2008, Amazon overtakes eBay as the most visited e-commerce site in the world. It's the exact moment the lines cross, and they're never going to cross back.
Look at the trap. Whitman turned "don't touch anything" into doctrine, and it worked for 10 years. But the same philosophy that made it great was the one that left it blind. While eBay was charging tolls on its bridge, Bezos was building an entire highway. And when buyers discovered they could have a guarantee, easy returns, and 2-day shipping, eBay's bridge was left empty.
And the worst was yet to come. In 1998, almost at the same time eBay was starting to explode, a group of programmers launched PayPal, a system that let you send money over the internet instantly. eBay's users adopted it spontaneously to pay each other without anyone asking them to, and eBay tried to stop it by launching its own system, BillPoint, but users ignored it for 2 years. So in 2002, eBay did the only thing it had left: buy PayPal for $1.5 billion. If you can't beat your enemy, buy them. For 13 years, PayPal was the silent engine that powered every eBay transaction. Until in 2014, Carl Icahn showed up, a billionaire who specializes in buying shares of companies he considers poorly managed, to publicly pressure their leadership until they do what he wants. Icahn bought 2.5% of eBay, which sounds like nothing, but combined with his reputation, his access to the media, and his ability to convince other shareholders to join his cause, it was enough to turn the entire executive suite upside down. He argued that PayPal was worth more on its own than buried inside eBay, and the board resisted for months. But Icahn wouldn't stop giving interviews, writing public letters, and making noise until in September 2014, eBay gave in. It announced it would spin off PayPal as an independent company. In July 2015, PayPal went public on its own. And you know what Icahn did that same day? He sold all his eBay shares and kept only the PayPal ones, because he knew exactly what was going to happen. PayPal was going to grow, and eBay was going to be left with the empty shell.
Look at what just happened. eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion and held it for 13 years. When it let go, PayPal went public and today is worth $44 billion per op, practically the same as all of eBay. It didn't lose an asset, it lost control of the flow of money.
What's left is a fall in slow motion. Without PayPal, without an answer to Amazon Prime, and with a platform that hadn't changed practically at all in a decade, eBay enters a spiral that seems irreversible. Buyers start leaving. From 179 million active users in 2018 to 159 in 2020. And the bleeding doesn't stop. Every quarter, a couple million more leave, silently, without drama, like customers who simply stop coming back. The market cap that once touched $78 billion crashes to $22 billion in 2022, less than a third of what it was. But the worst part isn't the numbers, it's the perception. eBay becomes a joke. Does eBay still exist? Is the most repeated comment on social media, and the press publishes articles with headlines like, "What's left of once mighty eBay isn't very promising." Analysts no longer debate whether eBay can compete with Amazon. They debate whether eBay is going to survive. The company that invented commerce between strangers, the one that was once bigger than Amazon, has become a relic that nobody quite knows what it's for. And to top it all off, Skype, that toy eBay dumped for $1.9 billion, ended up in Microsoft's hands for $8.5 billion. More than 4 times what eBay got when it sold it. The fact that eBay survived this list of disasters is in itself a case study. In April 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, with physical stores closed and e-commerce skyrocketing, a new CEO arrives. Jamie Iannone, a Walmart and Sam's Club veteran whose first move is to sit down, look at the numbers, and ask a question nobody at eBay had dared to ask in 20 years. What are we actually good at? Not what we want to be, not what we were, but what are we good at today with what we have? The answer was uncomfortable but obvious. eBay couldn't compete with Amazon on shipping speed or logistics or price or general variety. That war had been lost a decade ago. But there was something Amazon did not know how to do. Sell unique items where trust between people matters more than how fast the package arrives. So Iannone makes the most counterintuitive decision in recent e-commerce history. Instead of growing, he shrinks. He stops trying to sell everything and focuses on a handful of categories where eBay is irreplaceable. Pokémon cards and collectible trading cards, a market where authenticity is everything. eBay launches authentication and professional grading services, and volume shoots up to double digits. Limited edition sneakers with verification included, so the buyer knows they're not paying $400 for a fake. Luxury handbags and second-hand watches, where an eBay expert inspects the product before it reaches the buyer. Car parts, a massive niche where Amazon has neither the structure nor the knowledge to compete. And refurbished electronics with a warranty. Iannone also brings in artificial intelligence so anyone can sell without any hassle. You take a photo of the item, and the AI generates the description, the title, and even the category. What used to take you 20 minutes now takes 30 seconds. For the first time in a decade, eBay isn't copying Amazon. It's doing something Amazon can't copy. And then something happens that nobody expected. In 2024, eBay makes $10 billion in revenue with a 21% operating margin, higher than in Meg Whitman's golden era. The stock is up 75% since Iannone arrived, beating Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon itself over that period. In 2025, revenue reaches $11 billion and transaction volume hits $75 billion. And it's no longer a one-time bounce. It's a trend that's been accelerating for 4 years. And the secret? Having accepted what seemed like a defeat, that eBay could no longer be everything to everyone.
The system that saved eBay is exactly the opposite of the one that nearly killed it. Stop growing to become essential.
eBay spent 20 years trying to be Amazon. Bigger, faster, more of everything. And failed. But when it stopped chasing size and asked itself, what are we the only ones at? The answer was right where it all started. In the niches where trust between people matters more than shipping speed. Cards, luxury, car parts. Markets where the buyer needs to know the seller is real and the product is authentic. Exactly what Pierre Omidyar built in 1995 with a broken laser pointer and a system of little stars.
So ask yourself the question, are you competing to be the biggest in a market you can't win? Or are you looking for the corner where you're irreplaceable?